Hey everyone, it is Natalie from Being Intentionally Creative, and you're probably looking at this going, what's she doing? Well, I don't know about the rest of you out there in my, YouTube channel land. If you're anything like me though, and you do a lot of different crafts, hopefully you have one room you can do everything in. I'm spread out. I wish I weren't, but I am. I have a lot of things, but I don't have a lot of table space. A while ago, I made myself a little tabletop stand, if you will, to put some things on. So I had not only that table, but I had the space underneath it to put some smaller things. And I've gone to, Dollarama. And if anyone's been in Dollarama, they have some things and then they shift them out and they bring new things in, but not always the same. And I had bought some small tables. They're probably about the size of what my Jdiction board is here. Anyway, I wanted to make my own. I used one of my molds that I had bought from Craft Smart at Michael's. And I'd done that, and for the legs I had used dowels, thick dowels. They're probably about a 1/2 inch dowels on it. And I thought to myself, well, you have a really big mold that's square that you could make another table. I have a set of stairs sitting on my one table here that was made many, many years ago for one of my dogs, but the stairs weren't actually wide enough and she wanted nothing to do with it. So I've got them sitting on my table and I've got stuff on them, but I'd really like to take the stairs down and I'd really like to just have some tables. And part of my process is going to have to be cleaning up the space in front of me that you can't see. Anyway, with the previous table I made, I had used the mixed mold, and the unfortunate thing with it when I made it was that I didn't make the mixed mold thick enough, and what I ended up doing was putting resin on top of it, because we know resin will stick to the mixed mold or the ceramic resin. And then I just put, these wood leg dowels on it. Nothing fancy at all, but I wanted to make another one, and I have a mold that I've made using just a square, what are they called? Cutting blocks, or cutting boards, not a cutting block, a cutting board that I had picked up at Dollarama. And I needed the shape actually for a memorial box I was making as well. I needed something that was square, that had some depth to it so I could make the base. So what are we doing today? Well, you'll notice, and a couple of people had asked me in one of my other videos where I got these funky looking pieces from. And I mentioned they were from Michael's. They are by, I believe it is Folk Art. I did comment on some people and their comments in those videos. So we're going to be using all three because it came in a package of 3. This is just bubble wrap I put on top of my mold to protect it. It's a fairly big mold. It measures approximately 10 by 14 inches. And this thing's going to have some heft to it. What we're going to do, I hate seeing things in my molds. I got to get them out. Okay, what are we going to do? Well, first off, we're going to mix up, I figured about 600 mils of mixed mold. We're going to pour that in first. I'm going to be using the colors of the Stampin' Ink Melon Mambo,Jdiction's Purple, and Alumilite's Yellow. So 3 different companies, 3 different colors. My plan is that I am going to split. I'm going to do 300, 300. I'm going to probably use, I'm thinking I'm going to call it a pink. The Melon Mambo and the purple in the 2 that I mix up. And then I'm just going to add some yellow to both of them so I can get some, I don't really care. I don't need any specific design on this, but I thought what would be cool is if I were to just sort of place these randomly on, maybe a little further apart or whatever, and then just work my way around, pouring, the colors through, let it spread out, let it set. After that, because I do want some stability to, I do know that the ceramic resin has stability, don't get me wrong on that. But I do have some puzzle piece parts made out of resin. And what I want to do is after I get, and it has set, the ceramic resin, I want to use these pieces. And I'm just randomly going to place them on top, which way I want. No rhyme, no reason. I'm not going to try and put these things together because I don't care. And yeah, I'm just going to put some resin down. I'm going to put these on top and we're going to just build something because I just want to use these up. And I have some other pieces I want to use in another resin piece. But I thought these would fill this up nicely. And, I'll try and make sure I can get as many on there as possible. And after that, with the other one I had done, the other table I made, I actually put a really big stencil on the top of it. And I might do that as well because I'm thinking I'm going to have the resin on the bottom. And the ceramic resin would be the top that you would see. What I had thought about as I've been sort of mulling over how I was going to do this is I'd really like to make a table stand, if you will, so that I could actually flip this back and forth. But I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to pull that one off. I might need my husband to make me something because I'd like this to be at least 6 inches high. And when I say that, so the dowels that I get when I cut them will be 6 inches, just so it's got some nice height underneath it. Not too high, but high enough that I can put some little things underneath it. So that's our plan. And yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it, especially being able to use some other pieces. I've been going through some of my resin pieces that I haven't used for anything, trying to figure out how can I incorporate them with some of my artwork. And I kind of like the idea of doing a mixed media and just random abstract pieces just to have a little bit of fun. Okay, I'm going to get organized with my mixed mold as far as getting it ready to go. And then we will come back and we will do our pour of that. Wait for it to set up, probably a couple hours, because I know sitting in here, I'm not going to let it sit for a day. I'm going to let it sit for a couple hours, maybe 3, and then I'm going to mix up my resin, get that all done so that I can get this out of the mold sooner than later, knowing I'm going to have to let the resin sit for 24 hours. And my plan is to use the dollar store resin that I have and to use up a little bit of my other resin that I'm almost out of, and carry on from there. I have this, I'd like to use it up. And I figure this is this is perfect resin to use for something like this that I don't plan on selling. I'm just using it for myself. That's the plan. And as soon as I've got and I'm organized, we'll be back. Just making sure I've sort of got myself organized to the best of my ability without getting things mixed up. Anywho, all right. I have put my coloring in my water just to give me a little bit of extra time. The purple's pretty intense, but we know that with the Jdiction. The Jdiction is very intense, whereas these stamping ink ones are a little, I shouldn't say they're not intense, it's just from a coloring. I mean, it's more translucent looking than the purple is. And we will see what happens with the yellow. Got everything mixed, got everything organized, just kind of, again, lay of the land, right? So let's do the purple first. And I like being able to give myself some extra time, so that's why I've mixed in. And I know one of my subscribers had commented on doing that, mixing the colorant in with the water first and then putting it in, just to give you some extra time. But you don't have to. It's, again, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever works for you, all right? I'm getting more comfortable with this, and I only say that from the perspective of, how much time you have to work with it. It reminds me of the polyurethane. You have so much time to work with it before it just starts to harden up, and you've probably seen in some of my videos where, that has happened, and it's just because I'm not organized, or I'm just not getting it mixed in a timely manner, or I'm trying to do something funky with it, and I'm messing up the time on it. That's all it is for me. So I just, you know, I'm just trying to be proactive, getting as much organized as I can so that I have a little bit more time, especially if I'm working with multiple colors. I think that's the other thing for me. If I'm working with multiple colors, you do have to watch your time. I'm gonna tell you that right now. You have to watch your time. But if I'm relaxed and calm, cool, and collect, then I'm probably okay. Sometimes I get a little panicked and I go, oh, I'm running out of time, and I don't like being like that. It's not fun. All right, let's do this. And I do have some extra water at the side, so if I sort of start feeling this set up, then I will just add some more water. Not a lot, but just a little, so I have a little bit of extra working time. I feel like I'm making mad potions up for Halloween. Okay, this is a pretty pink. It's got a hint of red in it, but it's a nice color. And I don't know how many of these I'm going to make. I'd probably like 2 for the table I'm sitting at right now. And I need at least 1 more for the other room, just because I bought a couple of the ones from Dollarama. So I don't really need in the other room. Someday I'm going to have a studio. I want to transport my garage into a studio. I can visualize it in my head. You know what I want. I'm just not there yet. So let's just play with the purple a little bit. We'll mix it up a little bit. It's still doing well. We're just going to put some droplets of yellow in both of them, just to add a little bit of dimension to both of them. Okay, we'll swirl it around a little bit, and then we'll get pouring. And see where we end up in the grand scheme of things. And if I have to add... Now, the yellow may not have been the best choice for my purple because it already looks a little murky. So we'll have to see how that turns out. I may not add any more. So we'll just do some purple through. Each of these, and then we'll add... Yeah, that's making the purple a little not such a nice color, but that's okay. Sometimes when I think things aren't going to work out, then all of a sudden they do. And the pink might help a little bit too, right? With sort of making it not look so yucky. Or we're just going to have a Halloween kind of themed. Now I did check my table and it did say it was level. I use a marble. And it did seem to be level. And I think what I'm going to do too is I'm going to very quickly and carefully move these guys around a little bit. Okay. And hopefully I've got enough. I don't need a big solid base for the ceramic resin. I know I'm kind of... I just need this to get into all the spots. I just want it in all the spots. That's my concern now. So I am just going to fill in some of these spots because I feel like I'm running out of time. So we're going to just fill in the spots. I'm going to pull those guys out now. Like I say, I'm getting better, feeling confident with my time, but I need to, and my purple is starting to set up. So we'll just have to put it in sort of random again. I know I'm making a mess now. That's okay. And then we'll bounce it around as best I can, because obviously I couldn't put this on my Lazy Susan. But I can lift it up and bounce it a little bit. I'm not going to let this freak me out. I refuse to. Okay. Let's do that, and then let's blend itself in, hey? I don't know if you can hear it, but this is making a lot of noise. It was kind of funny. I was watching a video because there's a company in Guelph that I wanted to. They've got new stock in their store. They're moving, and I just wanted to see what new stock they had. And I thought, you know, you should really get this poured, and then you can go back to watching your video, because this is going to take time to set. So I have a little spot right in there that, like, I'm not sure I'm going to be level with this because it's sort of setting up. But it looks cool right now. I'm not going to touch it. I thought, well, maybe I could do something here, but can you see over here? Yeah, because it's a little messy now, but that's okay. We're going to let this set up. I am going to let this sit for a good couple of hours because it is fairly thick, and it, you know, just because. And I probably should have put a little bit more water in it just to make it more workable for a little bit longer, because I can see it setting up. But anyways, that's okay. Again, this is for me. And as much as the purple didn't sort of work out, I like how the yellow is kind of turning it orange. So yeah, I kind of wish, again, I can decide which side I'm putting the resin on, and I can always decorate this up. Like I say, if I can find a way of flipping it on a table, that would be great. Or on some sort of stand. Anyway, we'll be back in a couple hours. Well, this has had 2-3 hours worth of just setting time. I have mixed up some resin. I mixed up, let's say, about 250 mils of resin. And I only did that much because of the fact that I'm going to be using these pieces in with it as well. So, I mean, I didn't want to make too much because I just didn't want to make too much. I've also decided I'm going to put in some sprinkles. This is just some multicolored glitter, and that's all I've got. So I thought I would throw some of this into my resin just to give it a little bit of sparkle. That's about the only reason I'm doing this, just to get some sparkle. Get the lid off of that. I'm just gonna randomly pour. Unfortunately, because my container or my mold is taking up so much space, we're kind of doing things off to the side in this video. I had mentioned about using the Dollar Tree resin. I want to point out, because the stuff I had bought had been sitting for a little bit, that my part A, some of it has set at the bottom. It's just sort of turned a cloudy color, so I'm going to have to hopefully be able to warm it up and have it dissolve itself. So I just thought I would mention to you that you don't want to let it sit too long. I encountered that with my deep pour resin, the older stuff I had and that I used up, that it had done the same thing. And I did attempt to dissolve it and it didn't work. So I finally just got rid of it at the hazardous waste that we had up this way back in, I don't know whether it was May or June. And I got rid of it there because I couldn't do anything with it. And I just thought, oh, I'll let you guys know just to keep an eye on it and use it sooner than later. Hopefully I can save some of this, but I just thought I would make mention of that in case you have some and you haven't used it. And then people have talked about being able to just warm it up in like a hot water bath or a warm water bath to help dissolve that. but I thought I should mention it because I hadn't even thought about it before I started to use it today. So hopefully what I have used isn't going to have a negative impact on the curing process, because that would be that'd be a shame. It would. Wouldn't make me very happy. But again, it's a lesson learned if it goes a little bit sideways. I'm going to just pour this on, and then I'm going to start placing my pieces on. I thought that might be a little bit easier. And I know I had kind of thought about using this as the top, maybe, but there's bumps and lumps in this because I didn't get it poured fast enough. So that's something to take in mind too when you're doing this, is that you want to make sure you can get it level. Unlike what I did, it was starting to cure up. I didn't bounce it out enough, and I don't like what is over here anyways. It looks kind of messy, so this is the right side to be covering up. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of this down, and then I'm going to spread it out with a spatula or something like that, just because I don't want too much down. I'm trying to think, okay, I haven't really done this sort of thing before, so I just want to, and I'm really hoping that I'm not making a mistake doing this early, meaning I haven't let it set for a day. So here's hoping that I'm not making a huge mistake doing this. Again, if I do, then you learn from me and you don't do it. Right? That's the whole purpose behind some of the videos that we do, is so you don't have to make the same mistakes we do if we make a mistake. That's all I'm saying. So, like I said, all I want to do is get the resin flattened out. And I've noticed too with some of these ceramic resin pieces that I do, that they tend to shrink away from the edges. And I don't mind that, but I'm just letting you know that sometimes they will shrink away from the sides a little bit, and then you get resin going down the sides, which I've had happen on a few of my pieces. Again, I'm going to call them the church windows I had done. I took them out and sanded them down a little bit, just one, to make them sit better, and two, to take off a little bit of the resin that had accumulated at the bottom, because it was my pieces weren't sitting flat, or yes, it weren't sitting flat, I guess is the way I want to put it. So I'm just, yeah, sometimes it goes down the side. So if it matters to you, you might want to take it out of the mold and then do this by pouring resin over top of it afterwards. But I didn't want to take it out of the mold. I wanted it in here. So I'm just making sure I get my resin right up to the edges here on this. Okay, so I've got it all flattened out. I'm going to put some more in. Looks kind of cool that way. Let's just pour some more in. And if I end up with too much of this resin I've made up, I'll just put it into something else. So what I'll do then next is start laying down some of my pieces. Yeah. And then we'll see how this turns out at the end of the day. Again, it might have been a better idea to have waited So I guess if I were going to give any solid advice, I'm going to say let it sit for 24 hours. I may have made a mistake going in as soon as I have. So we're just gonna, I'm gonna just carefully lay these down. Well, and as I said, I'm not doing any sort of anything with this. I'm just gonna randomly place these down. Again, I'm making this for me. And I think what I'll do is so because I have a bit of an unevenness, I may end up at the end of the day with an uneven piece. So I'm normally extremely particular. So if you are, yeah, you're gonna have to make sure you're flat with your piece. And I really should be thinking about where I'm dropping these guys, eh? I think it's gonna look pretty cool, especially if I don't have enough that you'll still be able to see through the, and I will sort of put these down a little bit so that they're in the resin. And I'm going to want to monitor my other resin I've got over here. I don't know if I'm going to want to put more of this on here. Or not. And see if we have bubbles under here. It's not really going to matter. It's not really going to matter. But I do want to make sure I kind of get these guys all sort of all over the board, if you will. It's going to be a funky looking piece, you know that? Very, very, I don't want to say modern, but very, oh, there's a word, I said it earlier. Oh, you know the word I'm thinking of. Not mosaic, that's not the word I'm looking for either. Abstract? It's not really the word I want, but that's sort of what I'm going for here, an abstract piece. And then I'll just kind of press down and make sure everything's in it. Who knows what I'm going to end up with, right? The most randomest of oh my gosh, randomness. Sometimes I can speak very well. Other times you wonder. I don't know, what do you think so far? It's looking pretty funky if I do say so myself. And there's no one here to argue with me to tell me I'm wrong on that. Don't you love that? When there's no one around to tell you you're wrong? I do. And I kind of thought I didn't really want to get like pieces, like color pieces together, but you know what? I don't care. Yeah, I'm still starting to question my whole leveling of my table here. Because I feel like I've got more resin down at that end of it than I do at this end, which isn't a good thing. And I'll tell you that right now. It's not a good thing for me. Yeah, there's definitely more resin down at that end. Oh well. What are you gonna do? You've kind of got what you've got going on. So I kind of got to find small pieces now. For some of these spots. Gonna move this guy over so I can drop that one in there. Let's press this down. Yeah, it's probably not going to help that I've got a slope in this. Probably not going to help. So have you thought of doing anything like this? This been something you would have considered? Using up some of your old resin pieces. I do have more that I want to see about using up. I might organize. I don't want that. I got too many of that color there. I may have to organize a little bit more of next time I do it. But I did want it to be really kind of abstract-y. I didn't really want it to be... I wanted it to be random. I did. Trying to think if I can move some pieces around just a little bit to use something like this. Yeah, I'm going to pour some more of that resin in. Especially up here, because I don't feel like I've got enough. I don't feel like I've got enough. I don't know if you're going to fit in there. Okay, that's not going to fit there. I don't think I've got... Some of these pieces are sort of sticking into the... I think into the mixed mold now. Yeah, I don't really have any small pieces left, so I'm not going to try and... I think I'm just going to leave it like that. I think that's random enough. And then I just want to pour some of this resin. I'd rather not pour it over top, so I want to just pour it in between. And then let it sort of ebb and flow and find its own sort of little places to go, if you will. And hopefully, sort of by having these shapes in here, the resin doesn't, you know, sort of all filter down to the bottom there where it seems to be more resin than I would like. This might be one of these odd... So we were out and we had to buy a new piece of farm equipment. One of our... What we use to cut our hay field when the next door neighbor can't cut for us. We have what's called a bush hog, and some of you may know what it is, but it's basically a huge lawnmower, if you will. And the place we went to, they had a outdoor building. It was called the Crooked House, and it was crooked. It was something to look at. It was kind of interesting, and I think the floor inside might even have been sloped, because when you got up on the porch, it felt okay, but I think it was, oh no, I got somewhere I didn't want to get it. you could kind of feel like you were sloping a little bit. It was kind of cool. The roof was even, it almost looked like the roof was caving in on it. Oh, it was kind of cool. It wasn't big enough for me to use it for anything, but it was kind of it was neat. I just thought I'd share that with you. All right. Put a little bit up here. I wasn't going to take you on this whole journey of doing this. I thought, oh, I'll just get it going and then I'll let them carry on with whatever, and then I'll come back when I'm all done. But, you know, hey, welcome to my ride. Now somewhere I saw, there's an air bubble under that piece, but I'm not going to worry about it. Just want to make sure they're down. Yeah, this isn't, I don't think this is going to be the most level piece I've ever made in my life. But again, that's okay. What do you think? I'm curious to know. I mean, I'm looking forward to being able to take this out and use it as a table. I think it's going to look cool regardless. And hopefully it gives you some ideas if you've got some leftover pieces, what you could do. And yeah, so I do some air bubbles along the side, which, yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. I want to be really careful because I don't want to burn my mold. So I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to go along the side here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you go now. I want to clean up one of my pieces because I did get some resin on it. And I want to clean up, and we'll let this set up. And hopefully, fingers crossed, this will turn out halfway decently. But I think it looks kind of cool, and I like that you can still see the colors from underneath. And fingers crossed it doesn't, that this works out the way I want it to. So in the future, I'll leave this stuff 24 hours to set. I think that would have been a better judgment call on my part. We'll see how it turns out. And hopefully my resin's all good, and yeah, it all sets up the way I want it to. I will see you back here when I'm ready to take this out of the mold. I am ready to take this out of its holder because it's time. I thought I would show you. I got a little bit of extra resin to fill this completely up. So we're going to take this out of its mold first and see how it looks. And again, not the best colors for this piece, but there you have it. It'll be cute when it's actually done properly. Apparently I haven't gotten around to doing it properly, but it will be at some point. And again, I can decorate that up if I want to. But it is a cute little mold. So we'll put that off to the side because that's not the main attraction, is it? That off to the side. I like getting things out of my way. All right. So there are air bubbles in this along the sides, and that doesn't surprise me at all. As we know from previous videos that sometimes the ceramic resin sort of separates itself from the mold and you put resin on it and it slides down. So I'm not surprised by the bubbles, and I'm not really overly concerned about the bubbles. If you were doing this for someone, you might be a little concerned about that. So let's very carefully. The mold itself is heavy, and the fact that we have ceramic resin and resin, it is heavy. I almost need an extra set of hands here, but I want to be really careful. The mold will bend and be pliable and whatnot, but this piece will not. Okay, give me a moment while I get things out of the way very carefully. And I'm thinking, where are you going to put your mold, Natalie? You're just going to put it down there for right now. It can bend for a few minutes, and then I'll get it unbent. Okay, so here we are. I've got my camcorder up higher because of the size of this, so I'm just going to tilt it for you, and then down and back, so you can see this. It looks pretty cool. I'm actually impressed with it, and I was a little concerned because this one piece here had sunk down, but I think part of the reason for it is I don't think it's as thick as some of the other pieces. So I think that's why they may have fit in. It may not have been my table being unlevel, more these pieces weren't as thick as some of these other pieces. My depth perception sometimes on filling molds up isn't the greatest. I either sometimes don't fill it up far enough, or I fill it up too full, and then you get sort of it's not a bowing, but it's a, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, dome. It's got a dome to it. Okay, so let's flip this over. Okay, well, this side looks much better than the other side, for sure. It's heavy. This has got a bit of weight to it, and I'm obviously now going to let it sit and completely, sort of dry itself out. Cool to the touch. Cool to the touch. It actually, you know what? Considering I put yellow with purple, and that was probably a bad idea on my part, it's not looking too bad on this side. And I kind of want to do something with it. I don't want to just leave it. I'm going to probably end up very carefully and with a very light grit sandpaper, sanding this down a little bit. I'm going to have a look to see, I have some big flower stencils, so I'm liking the idea of, doing some decorating on this of some sort. I also have some junk journal paraphernalia that I might see about putting on here, seeing if I've got something that fits the theme. There could be a little bit of decoupage going on with this piece, so I'm not 100% sure what I want to do with it at this moment. So I'm gonna lift this up again very carefully, so you can see the thickness of this. Can you see that? Okay. So what have we got there? We've got at least a ½ an inch, I would say, total between the resin and the mixed mold, which is more than, well, it depends, right? Because, okay, so we know that when I poured this, it was starting to firm up. So here, hopefully you can see that, it is thicker with resin here than it is down on this side. So again, not 100% sure if it's my table that's off. I'm just looking at this side to see. Let's turn this around. And so this edge, I don't know. Yeah, hard to tell. I don't know whether it was, I really need to check my table out a little bit better, because it's really hard for me to tell whether it's the table that's off, I'm off, or we're both off. I don't know. But I'm going to let it sit now. I'll figure out what I want to do to it, and then I may do it and then come back, or you may have to go to my Facebook page to see it done. But I do want to let this sit now and air dry for the day, just because. So you'll either get to see on this video what I decide to do to it, or you'll have to go to my Facebook page and I'll maybe comment on that. So let me know what you think. I probably jumped the gun pouring my resin on top of this before I should have. I don't think I would advise. I think if you want to let it sit, let it sort of evaporate the water out of it, and then put your resin on top. I mean, it's got lots of breathing space along the sides. I know some of my resin did get along the sides, but it's got lots of breathing room, so I'm just going to let this sit now. I would not put any kind of top coat on it for, even if I put a design on it, I want to let it sit for at least a day before I do anything else to it, as far as a sealer would go. And I think I'm probably going to let this sit more than a day. But anyway, that's enough me chatting. I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen so far. Again, I may bring you back to see what I've decided on. If not, you'll have to go to my Facebook page. Anyways, comment below. What do you think? For those who are my new subscribers, thank you very much for subscribing. For those of you who keep coming back, thank you as well. I really appreciate it, and I'm really loving the comments and the help that, you know, people are putting in the comments below when I have a question. So thank you for that. Anyway, I'll say bye for now, but I may be coming back. So bye for now. I decided to come back and show you some of what I've done to this tray. I can honestly say I'm not overly happy with what I've done to it, and I have some fix-ups to do, some spray painting on it. So I had a bit of a vision, and then it kind of went sideways. So let me just show you what I have done to it. And I have to be careful because I have just spray painted it, and you may be wondering, it was the sun that I have spray painted on here. I had originally put the sun on it by itself, and I thought, maybe I should just put the sun on it. But I kind of liked where some of the flowers were, so I thought, well, let's put some flowers on it, and I didn't do them all the same. This is one of those, I'm playing, but it's not really coming out the way I want it to. I used some pastes to do, let's see, can you see the dragonfly, this flower, and this butterfly. And then I used paints up in that corner. This doesn't sort of match, you know, these two corners, and I should have stuck with the same. I don't mind my butterfly, I don't mind my dragonfly. With my sun, I sprayed too much on it, so it's leaked a little bit. My intention, and this video is ending after you see this, but my intention is to potentially go in and draw the lines through, because they're different lines going through each of the sun's rays, and I'd like to sort of bring those out a little bit. I had used one of my paint markers on this, but if you can see up in this corner here, it had gone underneath the stencil I was using, so that isn't overly helpful. And I don't know if what I'm going to do is just take a black paint and just do very carefully, because I really don't want to put another marker on this and make kind of more of a mess than I've already sort of made on this piece. But again, maybe I should have just stuck with the sun and then just done it in general, like done a layer. But what I did was the first coat was a solid color, and then I did this shiny glitter on top of that, but I didn't wait between coats. So definitely, if you're going to do this, wait between coats. That's one tip I'm going to give you. Stick with the same theme. I think that would have been a good idea. There's potential I could have done something else with this, but again, I was playing. I haven't quite decided yet either how I'm going to do this, because I mean, if I put feet on this side, then you'll never get to see it, which may not be a bad thing. If I put feet on the other side, and I'll flip this over again so you can see it one last time. If I put feet on this side, you won't get to see it again, because I haven't come up with any kind of plan to be able to flip this back and forth. I really should, maybe once the sun is dry, take it out and get rid of some of these air bubbles that are just sort of air pockets that should be gotten rid of. But like overall, it turned out to be a pretty decent piece, I think. I would have been better off, I think, leaving it for one full day for the mixed mold to cure, and then putting my resin over top instead of doing it the way I did it. And I definitely should have planned this out a little better, because, yeah, well, there you have it. I should have planned it out a little bit better. This side I do like. I have to admit, I like how this looks on this side. So this side may win out, and then I'll just attach my, what did I call it? Oh, I had the word when I said it the first, dowel. Some dowels. I have some 1/2-inch dowels here that I think would hold this well enough for me to put stuff on top of it. And if not, maybe what I can do is do 5, so 1 in the bottom corners and then 3 along the top, whichever way I decide to do this. Anyway, there you have it. I still think it's a really cool idea, doing a tray that's both ceramic resin and resin. I still think that's a cool idea. I like what I've come up with. I just my decorating. Yes, leave something to be desired. And this spot here, that came out because of the tape that I put on. I used painter's tape, but it still pulled it off. Anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know what you would have done. If you had done this yourself, what would you have done with this set? I was trying to go with a 60s vibe to it. And yeah, my vibe didn't work very well. But, hey, it happens sometimes. Anyway, I'd like to know what you think. I'd like to know if you have considered doing something like this. And if you have any recommendations for how I can, or what there is out there that I could use to just set this on and flip it back and forth, that would be brilliant too. I'm open to suggestions, you know that. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. And yeah, I'm on to the next one. Take care. Bye for now.